Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 4, Text number 1. Vyasa Vacha Iti Bruvanam Samstuya Muninam Dirgha Satrinam Vruddha Kulapati Sutam Bahvrachat Shaunako Bravet. Vyasa Vacha Iti Bruvanam Samstuya Muninam Dirgha Satrinam Vruddha Kulapati Sutam Bahurucha Shaunako Bravet. Vyasa Vacha, Vyasadeva said, Iti, thus, Bruvanam, speaking, Samstuya, congratulating, Muninam, of the great sages, Dhirga, prolonged, Satrinam, of those engaged in the performance of sacrifice, Vruddhaha, elderly, Kulapatihi, head of the assembly, Sutam, unto Suta Goswami, Bahuruchaha, learned, Shaunakaha, of the name Shaunaka, Abravet, addressed. Translation and purport by Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada. On hearing Suta Goswami speak thus, Shaunaka Muni, who was elderly, learned leader of all the rishis engaged in that prolonged sacrificial ceremony, congratulated Suta Goswami by addressing him as follows. Please repeat the translation. On hearing Suta Goswami speak thus, Shaunaka Muni, who was the elderly, learned leader of all the rishis engaged in that prolonged sacrificial ceremony, congratulated Suta Goswami by addressing him as follows. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In a meeting of learned men, when there are congratulations or addresses for the speaker, the qualifications of the congratulator should be as follows. He must be the leader of the house, an elderly man. He must be vastly learned also. Sri Shaunaka Rishi had also had all these qualifications, and thus he stood up to congratulate Sri Suta Goswami when he expressed his desire to present Srimad Bhagavatam exactly as he heard it from Shukadev Goswami and also realized it personally. Personal realization does not mean that one should, out of vanity, attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous Acharya. He must have full confidence in the previous Acharya, and at the same time he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner. The original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it. Yet, it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. This is called realization. The leader of the assembly, Shaunaka, could estimate the value of the speaker, Sri Suta Goswami, simply by his uttering Yata Uditam and Yatamati, and therefore he was very glad to congratulate him in ecstasy. No learned man should be willing to hear a person who does not represent the original Acharya. So the speaker and the audience were bona fide in this meeting where Bhagavatam was being recited for the second time. That should be the standard of recitation of Bhagavatam, so that the real purpose can be served without difficulty. Unless the situation is created, Bhagavatam recitation for extraneous purposes is useless labor both for the speaker and for the audience. That's the Bhakti Vedanta purport. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Litam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namavom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarunda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here we see the context again coming back. Suta Goswami was presented with 6 questions by sages of Naimisharanya. So he had successfully answered the 6 questions. So again the topic came back, next what? So that's why Vyasa he is addressing again. Vyasa Uvacha, Vyasa said, Iti Bruvanam Samstutya. So after hearing who has spoken? Suta Goswami has spoken. Iti Bruvanam Samsrutya. It means they had congratulated him. So whatever he has spoken for our 6 questions is the perfect answer. Muninam Dirgha Satrinam. Where was this being discussed? Among great sages who had assembled at Naimisharanya for a prolonged sacrifice of 1000 years. Dirgha Satrinam. They have engaged in a sacrifice for a long time. It is 1000 years. That further we will get to know in next chapters. And who was congratulating him? Vruddhaha, the elderly person. Kulapatihi, he was the leader of all the Brahmanas there. Kulapatihi. To whom it was addressed? It was addressed to Suta Goswami. Bahurchaha, and this elderly person also very learned person. Shaunaka was a very learned scholar. That's why he was able to appreciate Suta Goswami. Shaunaka Abravit. So Shaunaka started speaking. Abravit means he started speaking after congratulating him. So on hearing Suta Goswami speaking thus, Iti Bruvanam, Shaunaka, who was elderly, Vruddhaha, learned, Bahuruchaha, leader of the rishis, Kulapatihi, engaged in the prolonged sacrificial ceremony, Dirgha Satrinam, congratulated Samstuyaha Suta Goswami by addressing him as follows. Sutam Abravit. So then what are the important here points from purport? We understand the expected qualification of the congratulator means the leader. He should be leader, he should be elderly, and he should be vastly learned. Certain qualifications of the person who is congratulating, and the qualifications of the speaker are also important. Yata uditam yata amati. That is in the last verse 1.3.44. Suta Goswami concluded by saying, this is what my realization is. Yata uditam yata amati means what my mind can absorb and what my mind can understand and what my mind can express. So that I have communicated to you. This is my realization of Bhagavatam. So that was the qualification of Suta Goswami. So this indicates that the words represent the words of the Acharyas and also based on personal realization. So he was giving as it is, as spoken by his Acharya Shukadeva Goswami, and he is also giving his own personal understanding. Then Prabhupada explains about the concept of personal realization. Presenting with full confidence in previous acharyas. We should present the topic properly with full confidence from the previous acharyas. Second, maintaining the original purpose of the text without disturbing any, without extracting any obscure meaning out of it. Presenting as it is. Next, one must realize the subject matter very nicely. When you are presenting it, you have to understand it first what you are speaking. Next, present in an interesting and suitable manner according to the audience. So as time, place and circumstances vary, the examples with which you may communicate may be varying. 50 years back, what seems to be an example, today it may not be an example. So it has to be a current dated example so that people can relate to the subject. So that's where the realization is practically applicable. According to audience, like you are explaining a same verse to different audience, how it will vary. If you are explaining to a school students, it will be an example which they can understand. If you are explaining to a working community, it will be an example from their working life you have to give. Then if you are explaining to a retired community, then somebody about 60 years, 70 years, thing which they can connect to. What you give as an example for school children, can you give that same example for other crowds? You cannot give. It does not make sense at all. So that's why his realization comes into picture. So according to audience, according to time, place, circumstances, you have to give. Like you are supposed to speak. You have been invited for an event and you are supposed to speak. The event is a birthday party. What will you speak? Something you connect to that person, importance of celebrating the occasion and some glorification of the person, something like that and all we relate. Okay. If the event is somebody's death ceremony, can you communicate the same message, birthday party message in the death ceremony? People will beat us. See, according to circumstances, you have to vary the subject what is being communicated. So the audience are very perfect. So he has to give to their class of understanding the material knowledge, the knowledge what he has to communicate. So that's why his personal realization comes into picture here. And the standard of recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, bona fide authenticity of speaker and eagerness of audience. These two are very important. If you wanted to understand Bhagavatam, the speaker should be bona fide in the Acharya Parampara and the audience should be very eager to learn. So in one translation, Prabhupada explains, whenever pure topics of transcendental world are discussed, the members of the audience forget all kinds of material hankerings, at least for the time being. Not only that, but they are also no longer envious of one another, nor do they suffer from anxiety or fear. So, when the audience get engrossed into the subject, we lose track of time, we lose the track of bodily requirements, hunger, thirst, we forget all these things and all, and we forget envious attitude about other living entities, others, and we do not suffer either fear or anxiety for that particular moment. We become fearless, abhayam. So, in many places in Bhagavatam, we see these similar circumstances being repeated because Bhagavatam is actually a questionnaire. Questions were put to devotees and devotees were answering them. We saw at different levels, like Parikshit Maharaj was asking Shukdev Goswami, Shaunaka Muni was asking Sutta Goswami, then Narada was asking Brahma, Vidura was asking Maitreya, Yudhishthira Maharaj was asking Narada Muni. So like it was always a discussion between two levels of devotee, like two different devotees. And the devotee who was asking and the devotee who was answering are also highly qualified personalities. So everywhere this subject of importance of realizing the person, the speaker and appreciating the audience is there. So this is in one verse, in third canto, it says, Shrutasya pumsam suchira shramasya nanu anjasa suribir idito artaha tat gunanu shravanam mukunda padara vindam hrudayeshu yesham. So, whom should we hear from? What should we hear from? It says, Shrutasya pumsam, for those people who are interested to hear. Sutasya pumsam, suchira shramasya, it should not be tiring and with a great labor. For a long time, suchira, chira means immediate. Suchira means for a long time, and shramasya, it should not be a burdensome feeling. Nanu anjasa suribihi, you should be heard about pure devotees from pure devotees. You should hear from spiritual master about suribihi, great devotees. Idito arthaha, and their life and characteristics of such pure devotees, you have to hear from them. Tat gunaha, and their qualities and their activities and their characteristics, you have to hear from them. Because who are these pure devotees whom you should hear? Anushravanam yesham hrudayeshu. Anushravanam means who are constantly thinking of yesham hrudayeshu, within their hearts, who are constantly thinking of Mukunda padara vindam, the lotus feet of Mukunda. All the time they are thinking within their hearts. If you hear from them, because the Lord can award liberation by hearing about the Lord and the devotees from pure devotees, we also become liberated from this material. If you hear from useless people, it will be waste endeavor only. Shramayavahi kevalam. So you have to hear from pure devotees. So it is the duty of the transcendental students to hear descriptions of pure devotees from similar devotees of the Lord. Because one cannot describe the Lord or his devotees unless one happens to be a pure devotee himself. The entire Srimad Bhagavatam is description of pure devotees. So it is very important that we hear from pure devotees like Prabhupada. So when we hear his purport, when we hear his translation, you get that realization what Prabhupada is communicating according to circumstances. According to various acharyas' opinions, he presents the topic. So that is very important for us. That's why you have to hear from pure devotees about pure devotees. Then transcendental students are those who undergo great penance in being trained by hearing the Vedas from a bona fide spiritual master. So who are these pure devotees? Who are these transcendental students? Who have taken the great austerity to hear from their spiritual masters. And who have taken great endeavor in this perspective. Not only must they hear about the activities of the Lord, but they must also hear about the transcendental qualities of the devotees who are constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. The knowledge is complete when we hear about the Lord and his devotees. Just by hearing about the Lord is not sufficient. You have to hear about the devotees also. Because these devotees are constantly thinking about the Lord. So, when these two categories of devotees meet, a qualified disciple is meeting a qualified guru, how the result will be? In one more place in Bhagavatam. Sangamaha kalu sadhunam ubayesham cha sammataha yat sambhasanaha samprashnaha sarvesham vitanoti sam. So when there is Sangamaha means when there is a congregation. Sangamaha means when two rivers meet. So Sangamaha of what? Kalu sadhunam, of different devotees. Kalu sadhunam, of various devotees, when they meet at one place. Ubayesham cha sammataha, and it is beneficial for both. Ubayesham, and it is approved by authorities. When the discussion happens, which is approved by authorities and which is beneficial for both the speaker and the listener. On what subjects? Yat sambhashana, the discussion, the discourse, the preacher, and samprashnaha, the inquisitive questions. From both perspectives, from the speaker, what is his communication, and from the listener, what is his question. Yat sambhashnaha samprashnaha sarvesham vitanoti sam. It will be beneficial and auspicious for everyone. Sarvesham, not just the speaker and the hearer. It is beneficial for everyone, all categories of people who are present there. So, hearing of the discussions about the Lord and the devotees, hearing of the discussions amongst the devotees is the only means to receive the powerful message of the Supreme Lord. So, this is the only way we have to hear about the Lord from the devotees. When Narada Muni questioned Lord Brahma in 2nd Canto, 6th chapter about various aspects of the personality of Godhead, the first thing what Lord Brahma said was, he congratulated Narada Muni. He said, thank you for giving me an opportunity to think about the Lord once again. So similarly, Sanat Kumara informed Prithu Maharaj. This is discussion between Sanat Kumara and Prithu Maharaj. See, he is saying already Prithu Maharaj, he is an incarnation of the Lord. But acting like a simple common man, he was questioning from Sanat Kumara. So Sanat Kumara is saying, you are also following in the great steps of all the previous acharyas. Although you are qualified enough to answer all our questions, but still as a common man you are questioning us and you are bringing the best out of the situation so that everybody gets benefited by this situation. Therefore, questions put by a saintly person to another saintly person about the Supreme Lord or about the ultimate goal of life surcharge everything spiritually. So what happens when the discussions were happening? The entire atmosphere is becoming spiritually surcharged. And whoever takes advantage of this discussion will become benefited in this life and in the next. How? In this life and in the next. If somebody is not a pure devotee or somebody is not a devotee, when they come here, when they accidentally hear all these discussions and all, their seed of bhakti is sown. Ajnata Sukriti, they starts accumulating. And when they process it further, when that accumulation comes to a stage, they will be able to access it and they will be able to further their understanding and finally go back home, back to Godhead. So in that way, in this life they become beneficial and in the next life, their spiritual life journey has already started off. And wherever they have stopped, Tatradam Buddhi Samyogam Labate Purva Dehikam, they will start from the point where they had left in the last life. So in that way it is beneficial in this life as well as for the future life, because the next life is assured of a human form of life and his bhakti will start from the point where he had left. By hearing discussions between devotees, both the materialist and transcendentalist are also benefited. The transcendentalist is experiencing ecstasy and the materialist is experiencing punya. So both are benefited. The materialist is benefited by association with devotees because in his life becomes regulated by his chance of becoming a devotee or making the present life successful for understanding the real position of living entities increased. So he can be guided in a perfect way. So in that way the materialist is also getting benefited. So if one participates in a discussion of devotees, he is both materially and spiritually benefited. So the discussions are both ways, they are beneficial. The speaker and the audience are both benefited, the karmis and jnanis are also benefited. So everybody who are participating to every level, to materialist, to complete super spiritualist, everybody are benefited in the process. And Bhagavatam explains what category of people are benefited. Further, in one more place it says, Vasudeva Kata Prashnaha. The questions regarding Vasudeva Kataha. Purusham Strin Punatihi. 3 categories of people are purified. When you hear Vasudeva Kata, who are these 3 categories? Vaktaram, one who is Vakta, speaker. Prachakam, one who is inquiring, student. Shrotrims, audience. So 3 categories of people are naturally purified. Tatpada Shalilam Yata, just like Ganges is purifying the 3 worlds. We said the 3 worlds: Swargaloka, Martyaloka, Pataloka, all these 3 categories. So as the 3 worlds are purified by Ganges, the 3 categories of people are naturally purified when they hear Krishna Katha. Vaktaram, Prachakam, Strotram. The speaker, the hearer, and the audience, the questioner, inquisitor. All these three categories of people are naturally purified. And Suta Goswami, what is his qualification? How did he become so special? Because he was blessed by Lord Balarama. The context is explained in Bhagavatam. Once Lord Balarama was on a pilgrimage. So, he was visiting various places and he came to the place where Naimisharanya, where this prolonged sacrifice was happening. So, at that Naimisharanya, all the sages have assembled there. Around 60,000 sages have assembled there. And they have selected Romaharshana Sutta as the leader of the assembly. So, what were his qualifications? Because he was a direct disciple of Vyasadeva and he was given the in charge of all the Puranas. So, because these devotees, all the sages, they wanted to hear about pure devotees and about the Supreme Lord, and all these things are elaborately described in Puranas and Mahabharata, so they wanted to hear from him. So, they have chosen him as a leader. And they have blessed him to have a long life, because the discussion is supposed to be for 1,000 years. And if a person is supposed to sit on the Vyasasana and speak for 1,000 years, so he should have that long life. And he should be free from hunger, thirst, all these things and all, so that the discussion continues. Or else for every half an hour, 1 hour, I am feeling hungry, I have to go. Or I am feeling a water pass, I have to go and clear my natural call. All these things are a disturbance. So the body should not disturb them in such a long understanding. So they have been blessed. So Romaharshana Sutta was blessed to be a leader and he was made to sit on the Vyasasana. So when Lord Balarama had approached the scene, everybody in the audience got up to receive the Supreme Lord Balarama. But Romaharshana Sutta did not get up from his seat. So there are some considerations why he did not get up, whether he was doing wrong or whether he was correct. So what was his problem? Lord Balarama could understand. He had failed to perfectly realize his constitutional position as a tiny part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So everybody is a jiva. Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. This is the status of every living entity, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. You are all my amshaha. And we have to realize that I am the servant of the Lord in that capacity. Rather, he imagined he himself to be the greatest sadhu. Because he has been selected and made to sit on the Vyasasana, he was thinking, I am the best personality here among all the people. That's why I have been rightly chosen to sit on this Vyasasana. And moreover, everyone else stood up to offer obeisances to welcome Lord Balarama. Romaharshana remained seated. Prabhupada explains he should have followed the example. He should have got up along with all the other people and respected the Lord. When Lord Balarama saw Suta Goswami, Romaharshana Sutta did not understand the highest principles of righteousness in spite of having studied all the Vedas, he certainly could not support his position. Romaharshana was given a chance to reform himself, to become a perfect Brahmana. But because of his ill behavior in relationship with the Supreme Lord, his low birth was immediately remembered. See, Romaharshana Sutta was not a direct Brahman. He was a Pratiloma. So, Anuloma, Pratiloma, there are two combinations. When a Brahmana meets a lower class girl, their combination is one approach. When a higher class Brahmana is met by a lower class man, so something there is a combination. So, he was a Pratiloma. He was not a pure breed. He was of a mixed breed. But because, birthright is not the qualification for us, Shastra says, it is samskaras which are qualifications. Samskarat bhave dvijaha. But here, even though after giving an opportunity to reform, to learn the Vedic knowledge, and to practice what he had learned, Romaharshana exhibited his old understanding. That's why Lord Balarama became offended with his personality. He was given a chance to reform himself, but still he was acting according to his old training. And what is his highest principle of righteousness? What is that thing which he had forgot to understand? First thing is his constitutional position as a servant. Next thing is he has to first receive the Supreme Lord wherever we are. Because the Supreme Lord has come to that arena, he must be given that first opportunity. He should be treated, he should be respected, he should be, his feet should be washed, like that and all. Some formalities are there. When you receive great personality, there is an etiquette how to receive him. You should have followed that etiquette. Lord Balarama and Krishna had killed many obnoxious, sinful persons who are all disturbing elements to the society. They were all demoniac in nature. They used to harass people, women, cows, brahmanas, innocent living entities. Means demoniac people Krishna and Balarama had killed. But none of them were brahmanas. They had never killed any brahmana. But here Lord Balarama had to think otherwise. Even though he is a brahmana, he is of the same personality of the demoniac mentality. He should be killed. He is equally dangerous and destructive, Prabhupada is writing, like other grossly sinful demons. On what basis he was dangerous and destructive? Then why did Lord Balarama punish a sadhu seated as a guru, even though he was voted in? He was selected among the assembly, he was voted in guru. On the context, Lord Balarama had spared Duryodhana, who is such a wicked person. He had nice friendship with Duryodhana. And Krishna had even excused Kaliya, the most sinful snake who has killed many his associates, inhabitants of Vrindavana. But still Krishna had excused Kaliya. But still here Lord Balarama had punished Romaharshana Sutta. Then why did Balarama kill Romaharshana Sutta, who was seated as guru and blessed by great sages of Naimisharanya with long life? So Prabhupada explains, because Romaharshana Sutta's transcendental realization was not perfect. So when you are as a speaker, your realization should be perfect. Because his realization was not perfect, he was to be removed from that assembly. Balarama remembered his Pratiloma heritage, and he improperly used his position of a Brahmana without actual realization. So his elevation to the Brahmana platform was not valid. After seeing the deficiency of realization in Romaharshana Sutta, Lord Balarama decided to chastise him for being puffed up. He immediately took up a blade of grass and killed him with that blade of grass, just with kusha grass, and Romaharshana Sutta was dead. As soon as he was dead, all the other sages who had assembled there, they had requested Lord Balarama, "Sir, you have done an activity of killing a Brahmana. You have to atone for this activity. Because we have given him Ashirvada that he will stay for long life. And it is a general etiquette because he has been chosen as a speaker. So he should not have got up from the thing because he is a speaker. So there are certain etiquettes to be followed. Maybe he would have lapsed in that etiquette. So he should not have given him such high punishment. Now you should atone for this thing." That Balarama said, "What should I do? Yes, whatever you have said is correct. In my perspective, he is an offender. In your perspective, he may not be offender. So should I bring him back to life is what? What you are expecting? Is this my atonement?" All the learned sages said, "No, sir. We don't want to undo what you have done. You are the Supreme Lord. But solution has to be brought out for this situation." So then Lord Balarama said, "Okay, the father is represented in the form of a son. So let us do one thing. Let us select his son, Suta Goswami, to be the leader of this assembly, because he is also a disciple of Vyasadeva through Shukadev Goswami, and he is perfectly realized person, and we will transfer all the blessings unto him of long life, all these things and all. Because of his high realization and proper understanding, he will be a great personality by which all of you can get benefited." So with that, Lord Balarama blessed Suta Goswami with long life, and it says, what did it says? Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Atmavai Putra Utpannaha. The personality expands himself as Putraha. Iti Veda Anushashanam. This is as per the Vedic knowledge. Tasmadasya bhaved vakta. So let him be the vakta, let him be the speaker. Ayur indriya sattvavan, by having long life ayuhu, indriya regulated senses, sattvavan and with high stamina. So with these three blessings, he has been given by Lord Balarama to become the speaker of the assembly. So in that way, Suta Goswami could get the mercy of his Guru Shukadeva Goswami and get the mercy of the Supreme Lord Balarama. That's why he was becoming the greatest speaker of Bhagavatam, which made the entire rishis of Naimisharanya become liberated by his realization. So it is important for us when we practice spirituality that we should not become proud of our situation. We should always be humble and meek, because pride precedes fall down. There was one similar story in Tirumala. This is of a devotee by name Chinnaya. So generally devotees have the great opportunity. By their capacity they can discuss with the Lord. They were able to interact with the Lord and they were able to converse with the Lord. So Tondaman Chakravarti and Lord Srinivasa were able to discuss with each other. Then in Kanchipuram, Lord Varadaraja was able to discuss with Tirukachinambi while he was fanning the Lord. Similarly in Srirangam, Lord Ranganatha used to discuss with Tiruvalakku Pichan, because he was the one who was lighting all the lamps in the temple. So they were able to discuss with the Lord directly, and Lord used to converse as a friend. They used to discuss what is happening in the temple, what's the update today, so anything news, like that and all. Every day what is happening, they were able to discuss with these people, with these devotees, and devotees were also able to have good friendly relationship with the Lord. Similarly, one such person is that one person by name Chinnaya, who used to stay in Tirumala and he used to serve the Lord. And he used to have one desire, that he wanted to satisfy the Lord by his singing. So he wanted to sing so nicely that he wanted Lord to dance to that tunes accordingly. Because in Krishna Avatara, Krishna was very famous of singing and dancing. So he wanted Lord to dance like Krishna. And Balaji is not different from Krishna. So he wanted to compose the best tunes by which he could attract the Lord's attention and Lord could dance according to the tunes. So because of his sincerity and sincere feeling, he was able to sing very nicely from the depth of his heart, the realizations and all, into songs which are full of philosophy and which are full of pastimes of the Lord, and Lord used to appreciate, and he was very much satisfied, and he used to come and dance according to the tunes of Chinnaya. So he started becoming very famous. Even Ramanujacharya heard about him from his disciples, that Chinnaya was able to make Lord dance according to his tunes. So once, one such situation, Ramanujacharya, when he visited Tirumala, he met Chinnaya and he had asked, "My dear sir, how are you? How is everything happening? How is everything going on?" So after Kushala Mangala Prashna, then Ramanujacharya asked, "My dear sir, when you meet Lord next time, please ask him, what is my status? Will I get liberated in this life? Will I get moksha?" He said, "Yes sir." Chinnaya agreed. He said, "Whenever I meet the Lord, whenever is the next circumstances, I will put your question." So next day, when he went to have darshan of the Lord, he started singing again. He decided one beautiful pastime to be narrated in a song format, and he started singing very nicely, and Lord immediately came there. And when the Lord immediately came there, then after the song was over, he started discussing with the Lord. "My dear sir, yesterday your so-and-so disciple Sri Ramanujacharya had come here, and he had asked me a question to put forward to you. So he was asking whether he will get liberated in this life or not." He said, Lord said, "Yes, very sure, after this life he is going to come back to me." Then I had one more question, sir. Please continue. He said, "What about me?" Lord was silent for a few minutes. He said, "No chance for you." Then he was heartbroken. "Whole my life I have been singing for you, and I have been attracting you, I have been calling you, and you have been dancing according to me." He said, "That was your desire, and I have satisfied that desire. That's it. This is nothing to do with liberation." Then he said, "What should I do?" to gain liberation. I also want to go back in this very life itself. What should I do? Then Lord said finally, if you want to become liberated, you should go to the person who had asked you the question to ask me this question and surrender to him. Only then you can become liberated in this life. So then immediately he understood that he had to go and submit to Ramanujacharya. He ran away from after meeting the Lord, he went directly to the ashrama, met Ramanujacharya there, and the entire conversation he had narrated, and he said, from today I am your Dasa. Please accept me and please show me the path of liberation. And Lord said, only he can give you liberation. I cannot give liberation. So this is the potency of the Lord. And the Lord wants to give capacity, Lord wants to prove the potency of his pure devotees, the acharyas. They have come here to liberate others, unqualified people, so that we all take the benefit and we all are in the process of liberation. And by surrendering to the acharya and by becoming committed in the principles of practice, then we all become liberated and we all can go back home, back to Godhead. Similarly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had blessed us with Srila Prabhupada, so that we all follow in the footsteps and we all, in the endeavor, we also become purified and liberated and pass on this purity to others, pass on this capacity to others, make the whole world beneficial. That was the mission of Lord Chaitanya. He wanted the whole world, Prithvitayata Nagaradi Grama Sarvatra Prachara Hobe Mora Nama. All the towns and villages, all people across the globe should chant the holy name of the Lord. And all the acharyas have paid process for that seed. The Goswamis have given that literature. Okay, you go and preach. What should you preach? You require literature. And to understand that literature, commentaries are required. The next acharyas have passed on that commentaries. And according to time, place, circumstances, into English language, they have been translated by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And the same fire has been passed on to Prabhupada to promote in other languages and basically in Western speaking world. So we have been blessed by the Acharya Parampara in the form of Prabhupada, so that we all could associate with him and understand that circumstances and that philosophy to current day context. And we all become blessed and we all become purified in the process and we all become qualified to go back home, back to God. So always we should be indebted to Prabhupada and the entire Acharya Parampara, and we should always maintain our humble attitude. So then assurance of success is guaranteed. So I'll stop here. Any questions or doubts? Both. Elderly means knowledge, age, everything is also required. That's why it is said elderly and Bahu Ruchaha. He is learned personality also. Or elderly in his realization. That is in first canto, when Shukadeva Goswami was selected. There was Narada Muni, there was Vyasadeva, there was all great sages, but Shukadeva Goswami was selected. He was the youngest of all the people. But on what basis was he selected there? So their considerations were given. There are seniority on what basis? One is based on age, based on knowledge, based on realization. There are many people may be advanced in age. There are many people who are advanced in knowledge. There are many people who may be advanced in realization. Because he was very advanced in realization, realization was given the first priority. Then comes knowledge, then comes age. Okay. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanand.
సభ్యత్వం, భగవద్గీత, భాగవత ప్రవచనాలు, స్ఫూర్తి సందేశాలు, ఇంకా మరెన్నో సదుపాయాలతో హరే కృష్ణ వాణి మొబైల్ యాప్ నేడే డౌన్లోడ్ చేసుకోండి. మరిన్ని వివరాల కోసం కాల్ చేయండి 9133107777.